Our intuition is flimsier than we think. Even someone who could count change in their sleep will hesitate the moment someone twists the order of the numbers a little. It's arithmetic you clearly understand, yet you get this uneasy feeling that money has vanished somewhere. There are two money puzzles that periodically set the internet ablaze: the missing 1001 and the jeweler's loss problem. Both paralyze your intuition, but look closely and the two traps are of completely different kinds. Like a detective reconstructing a crime scene, let's track where the money is one step at a time. No hard math is needed. All it takes is the patience never to lose sight of whose pocket the money is in. In truth, neither problem is hard at all. The numbers are just whole figures in the 10,000s and the operations are only addition and subtraction, yet countless grown-ups break into a cold sweat over them. The reason isn't the difficulty but the way the question is posed. Neither is a question with a fixed answer. Each is a question with a hidden trap. The questioner lays down a wrong equation in advance, then asks with a perfectly straight face, "So where did the leftover 1001 go?" And our brain, rather than doubting whether the question is even valid, rushes straight to finding an answer. But that 1001 never disappeared in the first place. Making you believe it did, that's exactly what the trap is. A wrong question has no right answer. The moment your intuition stalls, the first thing to doubt is not your own arithmetic but the question itself. Now for the first case. Blur a single detail and you fall into the trap, so let's write out the movement of the money step by careful step. 3 friends on a trip decide to stay at a motel. The room is 30,001, and the 3 of them each pay 10,001. But the owner realizes the room that day was only 25,001. They'd collected 5,001 too much. So the owner tells the clerk to return that money. But the clerk has a wicked idea. He quietly pockets 2,001 of the 5,001 and returns only 3,001, 1,001 to each of the 3 guests. Anyone can follow this far. The trouble is the question the questioner throws out next. Each of the 3 friends paid 10,001 and got 1,001 back, so in the end each one paid 9,001. So the total the 3 paid, 9,001 times 3, is 27,001. Now add the 2,001 the clerk pocketed. That gives 29,001. But the money that originally changed hands was clearly 30,001. Between 29,000 and 30,000 there's a gap of 1,001. Where did this 1,001 evaporate to? The first time you hear this question, a chill runs down your spine. Every single line of the calculation seems right, yet at the end 1,001 comes up missing. But recall the principle from the introduction. Before finding an answer, we have to ask whether the question itself is valid. To cut to the conclusion, that addition we just did, 27,000 plus 2,000, is a completely meaningless calculation. Doing a meaningless calculation and then being shocked it doesn't add up to 30,001 is like adding the number of apples to the weight of the apples and then asking why the result is strange. Just recall the most basic principle of accounting. When you account for money, you check whether what came in and what went out balance. You must add money that flows in the same direction. Mix money flowing in different directions and the total becomes just a meaningless number. The 2,001 the clerk stole isn't new money outside the 27,001 the guests paid. It's money already inside that 27,001. Add money that's already included once more, and of course the total gets inflated. So the right question isn't why doesn't it come to 30,001? But whose pockets is the 27,001 the guests paid scattered across right now? The 27,001 the guests bore is now in just 2 places, 25,001 in the motel owner's safe, and 2,001 in the clerk's pocket. Add these two and you get exactly 27,001. Matching what the guests paid down to the last one. The clerk's 2,001 didn't run off somewhere. It was money sitting quietly inside the 27,001 from the start. So how do we recover the original 30,001? Add money that went out to money that went out, and money that came back to money that came back. Add the 3,001 they got back to the 27,001 the guests ultimately bore, and you get exactly 30,001. This is the real balance equation. There was no missing money to begin with. The questioner simply slipped 1,001 out of the 3,001 that was returned and wedged the clerk's 2,001 into its place to confuse you. The real nature of this problem isn't arithmetic, but a linguistic trick. Wrap a meaningless equation in a connective like so, in the end, and our brain accepts it without checking. Suppose you explain this problem to your little sibling, using a candy shop as an analogy. The 3 of you paid 30,001 for candy, But the candy actually cost 25,001. The shop clerk got greedy, kept 2,001 for herself, and gave each of you back only 1,001. Now let's check. 25,001 in the till, 2,001 in the clerk's pocket. Together that's 27,001, right? Add the 3,001 you got back and it's exactly 30,001. Not a single coin vanished, see? The phrase "the missing 1,001" is just an illusion that arises from trying to count the clerk's 2,001 twice. Count money once and then count it again, and of course the numbers go wrong. Let's nail it down with one picture. On the left is the bogus arithmetic that bewitches us. It adds 2,000 to 27,000 again to make 29,000, then compares that to 30,000. On the right is an honest ledger showing where every last one of the 30,001 has gone. You can see at a glance that the clerk's 2,001 sits inside the 27,001 the guests paid. If the first case was a trap of language, the second has a different texture. It drags in a third party to make you mistake the same money for a loss several times over. An accounting trap. A crook picks out a 70,001 piece of jewelry and hands over a 100,001 check. It's actually a counterfeit, but at this point nobody knows. The jeweler had no cash to make change. So he goes next door to the bakery and exchanges the check for 100,001 in real cash. The jeweler hands the crook 70,001 worth of jewelry and 30,001 in change. The crook strolls off and vanishes. But the next day, the baker realizes the check is a forgery. The jeweler has to pay the bakery back 100,001 of his own real cash. Now let's calculate the jeweler's loss. He lost the jewelry, gave out change and paid the bakery back, so is it 200,001? Or 130,001? Or some other number entirely? Here people's answers diverge. Some insist it's 170,001, some 200,001, and others 130,001. The very fact that answers vary so wildly for the same problem is a sign that a powerful trap lies hidden in it. The most elegant way to solve this problem is to erase entirely the transactions that ended up breaking even. The more complicated a case looks, the more likely it actually contains parts that have no effect at all. Erase those parts and only the real loss remains. Let's split the case into two transactions. First, the bakery. The jeweler took 100,001 in cash from the bakery, and the next day he paid that 100,001 back. Combine the two, plus 100,000 and minus 100,000, and it's exactly 0.1. The bakery transaction is a perfect break-even. The jeweler borrowed from the bakery briefly and paid it right back, and the bakery received real cash instead of the counterfeit check, so neither lost anything. The bakery was just a stage prop that complicated our heads. So let's erase the bakery entirely. Once we do, the case becomes astonishingly simple. Once the bakery exits the stage, only two assets actually left the shop for good. 70,001 worth of jewelry and 30,001 in change. Here we count the jewelry at its full price tag of 70,001. Some object that the wholesale cost is only 40,001, but that's a separate question about profit margin. So the jeweler's final loss is 70,001 in jewelry plus 30,001 in change. Exactly 100,001. And this number is no coincidence. What the crook made off with was also 70,001 in jewelry plus 30,001 in change. Exactly 100,001 worth in all. One side loses exactly what the other gains. The most fundamental balance of any transaction holds here too without fail. The 100,001 the jeweler paid the bakery isn't a new loss. It was just the moment that the very same 100,001 taken by the crook, after a lap through the bakery, left the jeweler's wallet. If we go through one by one, why answers split into 130,000, 170,000, and 200,000, the structure of the trap becomes clearer. 200,001 is the answer you get by adding the jewelry 70,000, the change 30,000, and the bakery repayment 100,000 all together. But the first 100,000 is already the same loss as the bakery repayment of 100,000, so it's been counted twice. 170,001 adds the jewelry 70,000 to the bakery repayment 100,000. 130,001 adds the change 30,000 to it instead. In both, that money is already dissolved inside the 100,000 repaid to the bakery. Do you see what the three wrong answers have in common? Each one adds, under a different name, a loss that was already counted once. It's the very same mistake of counting the clerk's 2001 twice in the first case, returning in nothing but a new costume. Let's explain it to your little sibling again. This time it's a story about a stationery shop. A bad older boy comes to the stationery shop man, pays with a fake 10,001 bill, buys a 7,001 toy, and takes 3,001 in change. The shopkeeper had no change, so he swapped the fake bill for a real 10,001 at the next door shop, then got found out the next day and paid it back. But you can leave out the next door shop. He borrowed and paid it right back, so it's the same as nothing happening. So what's really left? The 7,001 toy the bad boy carried off and 3,001 in change, exactly 10,001 together. The shopkeeper's loss is 10,001, and that's it. Let's close this case with a picture too. On the left, the jeweler's balance swings over time. Two gray bars, the received plus 100,000 and the repaid minus 100,000, interlock and cancel exactly. Once you erase those two, what remains, as on the right, is only the jewelry 70,000 and change 30,000 the crook carried off, exactly 100,001 in all. By this point an interesting fact emerges. Two stories that look utterly different. One a clerk's petty theft, the other a crook's counterfeit check. The mathematical nature of the two problems is exactly the same, making you count money you've already counted one more time. Case 1 makes you add the 2,001 inside the 27,001 as if it were outside. Case 2 makes you add the 100,001 that left as if it were a new loss called the bakery repayment. In both problems, the heart of the trap is making you add what must not be added. And the reason we accept that wrong addition without question is that the questioner smoothly stitches the equation together with natural phrases like so, in the end, and add this here. So the true culprit in both cases is neither the clerk nor the crook. The true culprit is the question's phrasing, which made you count the same money twice. These two problems go beyond a simple play on words. They teach us something about how we handle information. When intuition is overwhelmed by complicated numbers and narrative, what you need is not faster mental arithmetic, but the habit of cool, level-headed tracking. Remember just 3 things and you can crack any change trap. Let's go through them one by one. First, doubt the question. A question like find the missing money may be a trap that secretly plants the premise that money really did go missing. Second, distinguish the direction of the money. Never add money that went out together with money that came in. Add only what flows the same way and check the balance. Third, erase the transactions that net to zero. A transaction you borrowed and paid right back or received and returned right away has no effect on the result. Boldly send it off stage and only the real profit and loss remain. Track just whose pocket the money is in right now, one cell at a time, and even the most intricate trap is bound to unravel. The missing 1,001 never went missing in the first place, and the jeweler's loss was 100,001 from the start. What changed was not the money but only the way we looked at it. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe and hit like. See you again in the next video.